'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Maroochydore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathrown, Proserpine, Ulladulla, Darwin, Gingin, Lillaquen, Muckdilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, Ramachilla. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man.
Yes, there's Lucky Star doing what he does every Saturday morning at this time. And today we are doing something you don't do very often, Rob, and that is we're going back. Oh, who had a hit with that? I think
Michael J. Fox.
Going back. Dusty Springfield. Hey, I've just sung on the radio. How embarrassment. Hey, we're going back to Grenfell, and we're going back to Grenfell for a very good reason. Let's say good day. I'm going to cross my fingers and say the right name. Cailin?
Yes. Hello.
Good morning,
I wasn't sure I was
Cailin.
getting you or Mo. Cailin Piper, who is one of two publicans in Grenfell. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having us.
That's okay. Now, when we knew you first, you weren't a star of television as you are now. You have been all over the media like a cheap suit this week. Tell us why.
Oh, look, it's been really good that people have taken an interest into our story. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. But it's quite of a sad situation having to close the doors to our hotel after 107 years. Not me personally, but we've been here 3 years. But it's a real shame actually.
So I know of the pub, and I'm going to tell this story on air, Cailin, just to really rub it in. I drove from Geelong to Grenfell, Rob. That's a trip that took me 3 days to visit Cailin and Mo. And when I rang them to say I was there, they said, that's unfortunate, we're in Dubbo at the zoo. But that's okay.
I'll blame Mo. You organised it with Mo. If you'd have organised it with me, I would have been all over it.
Yeah, that's okay. But it's a beautiful pub, and it's not a flash pub. I'm not talking. It's just a great example of an Australian pub in a small town. How big's Grenfell roughly? 1,500?
Oh, look, the population in the Shire and the surrounding areas is about 3,500. So it's not particularly large.
But it's at the bottom of the main street. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Geographically, at the bottom of the main street. It's a big, sweeping main street. It's just a glorious place. And sadly,
it is absolutely beautiful. It is. It's a real example, a real fine example of our sort of early gold mining and colonial history. Really, the town itself still has a lot of those buildings that remain fairly untouched. So it's you almost step back in time when you walk up the old main street of Grenfell, or even indeed the new one. The new main street was built over 100 years ago, so there's still plenty of reminders of the past there. Our pub as well, obviously. It's a stunning old building, and it's a shame now that we had to close the doors and sort of say we need to wait for some better times because things are just tough.
well, that was going to be the next question because we haven't really addressed why are you closing the pub? It's not falling down. It's not through lack of interest. What's the go?
Yeah, well, the reason ultimately is there's a number of reasons, and then every I guess regional hotel is different, but we've seen a real sort of social shift, I guess, post-COVID, which has seen a decline in the amount of people coming out. I think, there's a change. Pubs aren't what they used to be 40 or 50 years ago. Obviously there's drink driving, things like that. So you've got to account how things have changed around us. But the main reason is that regional pubs cop a fair, I guess, bad deal when it comes to things like our overheads. We're paying the same kind of insurances and costs that city pubs do, and we're seeing more and more overheads rising and less people walking through the door because now they can't necessarily afford to spend what they used to spend. The cost of living's just gone. People are scared. Interest rate rises, and we've got farmers coming off the back of drought, floods. People are scared to spend their money, and rightfully so.
And part of the reason I chose that part of the world to spend a few days in, because I came up through Wagga, Temora, Young, Cowra, Forbes. These are towns that people down here would recognise, possibly more so than Grenfell, because Grenfell's sort of a bit of an oasis in amongst all of that, was because you'd been, not necessarily Grenfell, but the whole region had been smashed with floods in December last year. You've got all sorts of things around, ironically, droughts as well, costs going up, obviously. as you say, people don't have the money to spend.
They don't. They don't at all. And when you're, when you know that the cost of opening the doors is getting higher, and you start to see your patrons using their credit cards to pay for beer, you know this is not going to be a win-win situation for anyone. You have to make that call, and it wasn't done. We certainly didn't make the decision lightly. We did it with the intention of making sure that we can open the doors again. I think, to wait any longer would have meant that there was a very good chance that we may not have been in a position to reopen the doors in the future. So we've had to think about it and make that call now. And I think it's a good time because people are not wanting to spend money and they are doing it tough. So I guess it's the only I think the real issue and the hardest thing to do when it came to closing the doors wasn't about the money. It was actually about those people that come in here that are creatures of habit. We've got an older population. Some of them are isolated on farms, and for a long time, it's more than just they come in for a beer. But we know if someone hasn't turned up on a particular day, and it's not long before we've made a phone call to say to someone, "Can you just go and check on them?" Or, for some people, it's actually really, we're more than just a pub. We're a mental health service, we're a community service. We're friends. And we're family, really, for a lot of those people that don't have family close by. And a lot of families do rely on us. It wouldn't be the first time we've had family members ring us from outside of the state even to say, can you, have you seen such and such, or can you go check on them, or would you mind just keeping an eye on Mum? I've given out my number many times to families who are worried about their loved ones to say, if you're worried, give me a call. I'll go and check and get back to you. If they can't get into contact with them for whatever reason, a lot of the times I can't hear the phone ringing, but it doesn't. It's comforting for those people. But it's just such a shame. But we're hoping that that's not forever.
Cailin, being in the country, agriculture clearly is a big part of the town's economic circumstances, but with that many people, there's obviously other industries there. Is everything still functioning in that regard? As it's not employment that's an issue, it's just that the interest rates have made the family budget a bit tougher to manage? Is that simply the reason?
No, look, I think it's been a changing thing over time. I think that's essentially the reason, the crux of why we decided to stop now. We have really seen that people are feeling the pinch with the rising cost of living. But I think that we've got to take into account too that things have changed. Pub culture has changed. Years ago, every afternoon the pubs would be full of farmers. Now it doesn't happen. There's been a real... I think it's like anything, really. If you think about it, farmers would come in after, a day out in the paddocks and have a few beers and drive home. Can't do that anymore. Families, farming families that are still there, the ones that haven't sold out to multinational companies, that's another thing that we've noticed. A lot of farmers are leaving. A lot of the children don't want to take on the farm because of the stress, and so they're selling out. And so we're losing people. And those that are still there, it's hard. So mum's on the tractor, mum's on the header. The last thing that's going to happen at the end of the day is Dad gets to go to the pub. It's all in or all out, and more often than not, it's all out.
Yeah, just think this conversation we had this week, totally unrelated reasoning, but the price of a beer over the bar, I can recall a pot of beer was 38 cents when I was a boy. It's now close to $6, and I don't know whether other things in life have gone up quite so much. So that ability for someone to go and have 4 or 5 beers after work, in a lot of budgets, it's just not possible.
No, it's not. I mean, our beers in particular, $6 is very cheap. We, I think, that was for a midi, for a schooner of beer. I think we'd just gone up after the CPI in August to $7.50. Or $8. $7. I couldn't remember. It's not terrible. I knew it was close, but other pubs, we're the cheapest beer in town. Were the cheapest beer in town. But a lot of the other pubs even that were publicans that were spoken to in town, one was saying if it wasn't for the fact that she had poker machines, she would be in exactly the same position. So unless you've got those other income streams coming in, you just can't support it to make up for that loss. And pubs beers in the city, where people were paying $12 a schooner. we can't charge that here. You get run out of town.
Good to have the financial advisor sitting next to you too. I can hear him mumbling away in the background there. and I guess the other thing too, Cailin, if you go to, well...
Because to be honest, I haven't paid for a beer in about 3 years.
But if I go up to, the local liquor barn, let's use that expression, because I don't think that's a brand, and I buy a slab of 24 beers, let's say at worst I'm paying $72, because that makes it easy to do the maths. That's $3 a stubby. And you're charging, and I'm not having a crack, obviously, $7.50 for a beer. It takes out the requirement to drive home or get a taxi home. It does make it pretty hard, doesn't it? Yes, I understand that takes away the community element of it, but it's pretty hard to compete with.
You can't. You just can't. And I think too, over COVID, people spent so much time in their homes and their spaces improving those, and so now they've got these fabulous, and I think we'd be in the same boat too if we didn't have a pub. The last place we'd be coming for a beer is the pub, because we simply couldn't afford it either. We'd be 3 kids in tow. Yeah, and 3 children. Like families, now you would just go and buy a case of beer and get together with friends, have a barbecue and eliminate that, need to drive home or spend that kind of money, which no one can afford. So we really need to start looking and having a serious conversation about how we can adapt. I don't think this is the end of country pubs. I think we just need to look at what's happening socially and how we can adapt.
And I think the other thing is too, you've got some people like Shanna Wan doing some amazingly good work around sober in the country, and trying to increase the opportunity for people to go to somewhere like a pub and not feel the stigma if they don't drink beer. So that movement is also gaining momentum, and I think that's a great thing to give people that option. But I think it's just, times are changing and we need to make changes somehow, and I'm not sure how that works, but I'm sure there are minds working at it.
Well, I'm hoping so. I know mine's been working overtime. but yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, and change is inevitable.
Yep.
It's been happening since forever. So
well, goodness me, they even let ladies in the pub now, don't they?
I know. Exactly. Things have just changed. My children, we live here. My children live in a pub. But it's home. That's the other thing too. It is a real. We've got a real sense of community, and I think we're just looking forward to exploring, I guess, those avenues. And I see a lot of people do come in and they'll drink 0 beer. Giving people the option, and that's just part of adapting to these changing times. And we're looking forward to doing that. But in the meantime, I think I'm more looking forward to picking up a paintbrush and giving the old building some much needed TLC. She looks pretty good, but she's tired.
And so's the pub. Hey, Cailin, we've got to go because he's gone to the other studio to start the next program, so we better get moving. People can like you on Facebook by looking for the Railway Hotel Grenfell, Grenfell. And please, folks, get on there and give them a like and tell them you're thinking of them, and I'll look forward to keeping in touch with you two over the next little while.
And on Facebook also, as we're sort of starting to do the renovations, we plan on updating the Facebook page with our progress.
Even better.
It'd be really nice if people can follow, and I'm sure we're going to need plenty of advice too. So
oh, you've come to the right place if you're looking for advice, because we give it out whether people want it or not.
Okay.
Thanks, Cailin. Thanks, Mo. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye.